It is now that I have the privilege to introduce our speaker for this morning, Sandra Lord. Sandra Lord grew up in Bowling Green, Ohio, and at a very early age had an inner knowledge that there was more to this world than meets the eye. In 2007, she found Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp and started taking mediumship classes. After going back to college to become a hospice nurse, Spirit kept calling her to get back to studying mediumship and help provide the proof that life continues after death. Sandra moved back to Central Florida in 2020 and began taking mediumship classes again in Cassadaga in 2022. Shortly after becoming a member of the Southern Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp in 2023, she began her official studies in the mediumship and spiritual healing programs here in Cassadaga. Please join me in welcoming Sandra Lord, our speaker today.
Thank you. Okay, I want to share with you this morning a topic that is kind of complex, but I think most of us at some point in our lives have pondered upon the existence of it, the soul. Since the dawn of human beings, we have always pondered upon the meaning of life and death. Why a once speaking, breathing, lively human being becomes suddenly still and lifeless. Cave dwellers have painted on the walls and tried to interpret what death and life meant to them. It was a mystery and took on mystical meanings since they struggled to understand. Rituals and beliefs have sprung up around these events of life and death, and these two significant events have permeated the foundations of all religions. It is quite clear that when a person or any living thing, be it an animal, insect, or plant, dies, the physical material of once an animated, moving being is now a pile of matter that starts to decay and becomes naturally a part of the earthly soil. If you have ever been at the bedside of a loved one that has died, or even having to put your beloved pet to sleep, you know what I'm talking about when I say, once the body ceases to breathe, the heartbeat is gone. The life in that human or animal is gone. You look upon that lifeless body and get a knowing that they are no longer with you. What you see lying before you as a lifeless body is no longer your loved one or your pet. Something is gone. The life force has left the body behind. As stated in my intro, I am a hospice nurse, and I've witnessed the life force soul leave the body. I'll never forget the time when I was at the bedside of a gentleman who was already transitioning and actively dying in the hospital ICU. I was there to speak with the daughter about hospice services. I started my discussion and felt the discussion was too clinical and blunt, and knew that the last physical sense to go in a dying person was hearing. I didn't want this dying man to hear this conversation, as I didn't want to disturb his peaceful passing. So I asked the daughter if she wanted to leave the room and for this discussion, and she said yes. So we went to another room, and I gave her all the information about hospice services. And after our conversation, we came back to the room, and this man had passed, just as I expected would come sooner or later. The stark difference of life and no life in that body was so significant. I was totally blown away. I looked upon that lifeless body of that man in that hospital bed and could literally feel that his spirit soul had left. That body in the bed was not that man. He left the room. And the physical pile of material in that bed was not him. What exactly is the soul? So I started at the very beginning, because I like to research from the beginning, and I did some research into the ancient philosophers' theories of what they believed to be the soul. The ancient Greek philosophers struggled with the meaning of what a soul was. And by the end of the 5th century, the time of Socrates' death, soul was standardly thought of and spoken of, for instance, as the distinguishing mark of living things, as something that is a subject of emotional states and that is responsible for planning and practical thinking, and also the bearer of such virtues of courage and justice. In the classical period of philosophy, Socrates was known for the Socratic method of questioning and dialectic conversation to stimulate critical thinking. Plato was a student of Socrates and founded the Academy and developed theories on ideal forms and the nature of the soul. Aristotle, a student of Plato, founded the Lyceum, which was a school founded by Aristotle around 335 BCE, where he lectured, wrote, and established the first European library. He made significant contribution to logic, ethics, and natural science. And we use the word lyceum these days as a meeting place or an organization that hosts public lectures, debates, concerts, or educational events. And the lyceum is meant to be a place for people to be able to freely think outside of the box and to discuss freely without judgment. If you attended my lyceum discussion back in August, you learn about my ongoing journey to finding a spiritual truth that I can live with. And I spoke about learning through my religious upbringing in the Catholic Church the biblical truth through the Master Jesus that the kingdom of God is within you. And you can reference this in Luke chapter 17, verse 21. And the meaning of this is quite clear to me, that the kingdom of God is not a physical place, but an essence or a feeling or a metaphysical realization that the very divine essence of who we are. So what is this divine essence of who we are? Well, it's what we call the spirit, soul within us. In the book called The Vortex, where the law of attraction assembles all cooperative relationships by Esther and Jerry Hicks, the teachings of Abraham, Esther channels collectively her spirit guides who call themselves Abraham. And in this book, Abraham states, before your birth into this physical body, you focused a part of your spiritual consciousness into the physical body that you now recognize as you. You were an intelligent, clear, happy, non-resistant consciousness, eager for this new experience into which you were emerging. And before your birth, the only relationship you experienced was your relationship with your source, God, infinite intelligence. But since you were at that time non-physical and therefore non-resistant, you experienced no discernible separation between you and source. You were source. Many people do not understand that they existed before their physical birth. Many others believe that if they existed in the non-physical before their birth, the non-physical part of them ceased to be once they were born into this body. Well, that's a flawed premise or a belief, to think that you're either non-physical or physical, either dead or alive. Because in reality, your spirit soul is eternal, whether in the physical realm or in the spiritual realm. Think of your soul this way, at least that's what helps me. The spiritual realm is like the ocean, so vast you can't see it from shore to shore, as it is thousands of miles long and wide. And if you take a cup of ocean water and take it home, do you think of it as just a cup of water separate from the ocean? Or do you still realize and understand that this cup of ocean water is still a part of that vast ocean? In one of Esther Hicks' other books called The Law of Attraction, the basic teachings of Abraham, Abraham speaks of everyone having an inner being. And Abraham says, few people actually understand that the non-physical part of them remains currently powerfully and predominantly focused in the non-physical realm, while a part of that perspective flows into this physical perspective and their now physical body. And some call that non-physical part the higher self or soul. And it matters really not what you call it, but it is of great value for you to acknowledge that your inner being soul exists. For only when you consciously understand the relationship between you and your inner being soul do you have true guidance. And the challenge as we face as divine spiritual beings is that part of our agreement to incarnate and participate in this earthly realm in a physical body is that we naturally forget where we have come from. The veil between the spiritual realm and the earthly realm is real, and we now have amnesia. We cannot clearly remember our life as it was in the spiritual realm before our soul was incarnated into the flesh. In New Age metaphysical thought, the soul's journey involves a pre-birth choice to incarnate and enter a human body, which imposes an experience of spiritual amnesia, the forgetting of one's divine origin and existence in the spiritual realm. Well, it's not an accidental thing, but a necessary part of the human experience, offering specific lessons and opportunities for growth. And my thoughts on this spiritual amnesia is that spiritual beings, we incarnate for the challenge of trying to remember who we truly are. We enjoy being incarnated. We enjoy temporarily being clothed with a human body because we can create in this amazing world anything we want. And the spiritual challenge is as above, so below. We want to create the loving spiritual realm here on earth. How beautiful the world would be if we truly remembered our spiritual heritage and brought it forth into this world. In the Lord's Prayer, there's a section that says, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." Boy, that used to just confound me as a little girl. I'm like, what do you mean, bringing heaven to earth? That sounds crazy. Who could do that? But now I understand that part of the prayer is our commitment to God's source, infinite intelligence, even to ourselves, that we will do our best to remember our spiritual essence in all of its glory, to live spiritually while in the physical world. Our great scientists have studied the physical body for thousands of years and have made great strides in understanding how it works and how we can heal it and when it is inflicted with disease and illness. And we focus most of our lives on the health and well-being of our physical body and rely heavily upon the 5 senses that we use to navigate the environment we live in. We need to be able to see, taste, hear, touch, and smell. And we interpret the stimuli from the environment to perceive light, sound, odors, and physical contact. Our basic understanding of human evolution comes from the facts that our scientists have been exploring our environment by way of the truths that come to us by the reality of our 5 physical senses. But there is so much more to us than our 5 physical senses. So let's now focus on the spiritual qualities of the physical body in the perspective that the physical body is and can be the spiritual conscious gateway to understanding the spirit soul while it's encased in this energy frequency of what we call the human body. In the book written by Gary Zukav called The Seat of the Soul, he writes, "We have been, until now, 5 sensory human beings. This path to evolution has allowed us to see the basic principles of the universe in concrete ways. If we can see it, taste it, hear it, smell it, and feel it through the body, well, it's real and what we call reality. And we can see through our 5 senses that every action is a cause that has an effect, and that every effect has a cause. And we see the results of our intentions. When the physical environment is seen only from the 5 sensory point of view, physical survival appears to be the fundamental criterion of evolution because no other kind of evolution is detectable. It is from this point of view that survival of the fittest appears to be synonymous with evolution, and physical dominance appears to characterize advanced evolution. When perception of the physical world is limited to the 5 sensory modality, the basis of life in the physical arena becomes fear. Power to control the environment, and those within the environment appears to be essential. After thousands of years of humanity focusing on being brutal to each other, with all the wars we've had, due to living in the realm of fear and the 5 sensory modality, I believe that we are slowly coming to the realization that this way of living and treating each other is just not working for the evolution of the human species, be it physically or spiritually. Gary Zukav also writes, when you come to understand that the larger part of us, the divine essence of who we are, is eternally connected to Source, then we inherently have a deeper understanding that there is another kind of power. A power that does not judge what it encounters, a power that perceives meaningfulness and purpose in the smallest details upon the earth. This is called having and living in your authentic power. When we align our thoughts and emotions and actions with the highest part of ourselves, our soul, we are filled with enthusiasm, purpose, and meaning. Life is rich and full. We have no thoughts of bitterness. We have no memory of fear. We are joyously and intimately engaged with our world. This is the experience of authentic power. Authentic power has its roots in the deepest source of our being. An authentically empowered person is incapable of making anyone or anything a victim. An authentically empowered person is one who is so strong, so empowered, that the idea of using force against another is just not part of his or her consciousness. There's been a lot of talk for decades in the metaphysical circles and from those who channel spirit entities that the evolution of the human consciousness has been evolving. We are evolving from a species that pursues external power into a species that pursues authentic power. We are leaving behind exploration of the physical world as our sole means of evolution. The current evolution, the consciousness that results from an awareness that is limited to the 5 sensory modality, is no longer adequate to what we must become. We must evolve consciously beyond the 5 sensory modality. Scientists have, for hundreds of years, have gone deeper and deeper into the realms of the smallest particles to try and understand the larger parts of our world and the cosmos. Quantum mechanics is showing us that we are perceiving physically. It's not the reality of our world. There is so much more to the nature of our world that's imperceivable to our 5 senses. And we have got to go beyond the physical into the exploration of the metaphysical for our conscious and spiritual evolution. We must evolve from our five-sensory consciousness into a multi-sensory consciousness. And this multi-sensory consciousness is the consciousness of our souls. Your divine essence soul is asking of you day in and day out to make a deeper connection with it. The multi-sensory consciousness is the invisible origins of where our deepest values can be found. And all our great teachers are or have been multi-sensory humans, living a life with the intention to be open, compassionate, and loving, awaken within us the recognition of universal truths. And Gary Zukav also explains that quite clearly a difference between living a life in the five-sensory modality to the multi-sensory way of life. From the perception of the five-sensory human, we are alone in the universe that is only physical. And from the perception of the multi-sensory human, we are never alone. And the universe is alive, conscious, intelligent, and compassionate. From the perception of the five-sensory human, the physical world is harsh, has limited resources, and we strive to dominate it so that we can survive. And from the perception of the multi-sensory human, the physical world is a learning environment full of opportunities and resources that is created jointly by the souls that share it, and everything that occurs within it serves their learning. From the perception of the five-sensory human, intentions have no effects. The effects of actions are physical, and not all actions affect us or others. But from the perception of the multi-sensory human, the intention behind an action determines its effects, and every intention affects both us and others, and the effects of intentions extend far beyond the physical world. So what exactly is a multi-sensory human? Each of us has been tasked to become into this world to learn the psychological, emotional lessons that we need to further our growth spiritually. We came knowing that we will be presented with life situations that will test our true intentions. And these life lessons will be ones full of emotional and psychological pain. A multisensory human has learned quickly within these difficult life situations that living a life just from the five-sensory perspective, it limits spiritual growth. Living a life stuck in the five-sensory perspective to solve our problems is one in which the same lessons will come back to you over and over again in different ways because you're not learning the way to work through the life lessons. The five-sensory human is one to quickly give up, get angry, overreact, and blame others for their difficulties. And who hasn't done that? A multisensory human is one that has learned from their difficult life situations to take a deep breath, step back, and view the situation from the soul's perspective. The multisensory human has learned to tune into their intuition and into the other metaphysical instincts that we inherently have. And this can be by way of just observing consciously what is happening around you, and then understanding that something within you is helping to guide you through a situation. And you can turn up the volume of your intuition and you can start taking the time to go within, to listen and feel the guidance by way of meditation. The words listen and feel are not tied to the physical five senses at that point during meditation, but allows what we call the metaphysical senses of clairaudience and clairsentience to be recognized. And when you take the time to meditate, to be in a quiet room, taking a long walk in the forest by yourself or walking along the beach, you will tap into the metaphysical senses or inner senses very easily and quite naturally. You probably won't even notice it. And I believe these metaphysical senses are what we bring with us from the spiritual realm into the human experience by way of the soul. And we must relearn how to use them while in the physical body. These metaphysical senses work along with the physical senses, and the metaphysical senses or inner senses become more activated. They bubble up through the conscious mind when your conscious level is in a relaxed state. The relaxed state puts your brain waves into the alpha brainwave state. And if you participated in today's meditation, you allowed your brain waves to slow down into the alpha brain state, and you may have received a feeling or a message that your metaphysical senses were able to bring up into your conscious mind. So don't discount that message or feeling, because it's real. The conscious mind is alert and ready to go, and when this happens and it's running, your ego's involved, well, that brainwave state is called the beta wave. And your metaphysical senses or inner senses become ramped up when you are physically and mentally relaxed between the brainwave states of alpha and theta. The theta state is where you are more mentally and physically relaxed to the point of producing states of creativity, insights come to you, and what is perceived as downloads. And this is a state that we also call being in the zone. For athletes doing amazing physical feats, or artists creating amazing paintings, and musicians that swear a piece of music just came to them and wasn't part of their conscious intention. It came from their metaphysical awareness and attunement to their soul that is operating on a spiritual level. From one of the Jane Roberts book as channeled by an entity called Seth speaks the eternal validity of the soul. He says, the physical senses force you to translate experience into physical perceptions, and the inner senses open up your range of perception and allows you to interpret experience in a far freer manner and to create new form and channels through which you or any conscious can know itself. The central perception of the multisensory human is that he or she is not alone. The multisensory human does not need to rely solely upon his or her own perceptions and interpretations of events for guidance, because he or she is in a conscious communication with other more advanced intelligences. And we receive guidance from not only within us, from our inner being soul that is eternally connected to Source, God, infinite intelligence, but also from our loved ones who are very much alive in the spiritual realm. Remember, the larger part of you is still eternally connected to Source and the spiritual realm. And this is why we can tap into the guidance of our spirit guides and have conversations with our loved ones in the spiritual realm. I hope I've given you a lot to think about, and hopefully some of what I've spoken here has piqued your curiosity in discovering more about who you are as a spiritual being, soul, living a journey in a physical body. And just understand that the kingdom of God is within you. God bless. Thank you.